Once again, this episode is happening on a Sunday because it really wasn't a great Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Ironically, the best part of the Thanksgiving weekend was literally the dinner. In fact, like the most explosive argument that I got into at all at Thanksgiving dinner with my family was me convincing my dad or trying to tell my dad that the Lions don't believe in winning a Super Bowl. He thinks they're just incompetent and that they don't know any better and that nothing's going to change as long as the Fords own the team. And I was just trying to impart to him that no, they figured out how to win. At least the daughter, Sheila Ford Hamp, has figured out how to win, but that's all they want to do. They just want to have winning records and not be 0-16 anymore, and they don't really care about winning a Super Bowl. If they did, they would have gotten more than a one-man pass rush and, dealt with their interior offensive line issues and whatever. That's literally the biggest argument that I got into at Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving dinner was awesome. That was by far the best part of the weekend. Everything else about it sucked. Everything else about it. None of my teams won, except for one Pistons win yesterday. Everybody else lost. Lions lost. Wings lost. Pistons lost twice before they got their win last night. And worst of all, Michigan lost to Ohio State. So, god-awful weekend. Horrible. I needed a moment to recover. So, this episode is once again being recorded on a Sunday. It won't be too long of one because I just got a couple of emails, but it is what it is. Hope that you had a much better Thanksgiving weekend than I did. And by the way, F Ohio State, F the Chicago Bears, F the Green Bay Packers, F the Boston Celtics, F any and everybody that had a hand in beating any of my teams this Thanksgiving weekend. But either way, on to the feedback. John Rossler leads us off, as always, with a couple of Flight Chat emails. This first one is titled, Thank You, Phil, and More. This has got to be about Pokemon. This has to be about Phil's in-depth response to his Pokemon question last week. He says, I appreciate the Pokemon response from Phil as I think it makes sense. Pokemon is different from Mario. It's a long-term investment franchise where you're trying to get every single Pokemon ever. Yeah, I will admit that that's the part that's crazy to me about Pokemon. I mean, that is a level of dedication to a franchise. I mean, not just a franchise, but also to just, playing each game on top of each other and connecting your data. I mean, we're talking like years, like decades long save files, right? Like you're transferring this data over to this game and that data over to that game and trying to get everything all the way back to the original ones. Like I'm sure they've done features and have talked to people that have been collecting from the beginning and literally have all of them. But the procedure, everything that Phil has said, and from what I know of friends of mine that have also played Pokemon, like it's a crazy level of dedication. And, I have to give them credit for that. I don't know that I would necessarily have that level. I mean, we're talking decades, seriously, decades of dedication to like collecting all of these things. It's crazy. I wonder how obsessive I would have been. No, I probably would have been majorly obsessive if I'd gotten into Pokemon from the beginning. So kind of glad that I didn't, because that would just be one more obsession to feed my addictions, if you will. And I have way too many of those. None illegal, just saying. A lot of legal addictions, if you will. But continuing, John says, just a heads up, this might be my only email this week. Wrong. But as I've been battling some type of cold virus, he says, and I'm still recovering and I got things to do for Thanksgiving. Also, I tried helping Tammy when I was sick as she fractured her shoulder falling off her bike. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't sound like you guys had that great of a holiday either. Hope both of you are getting better. He says, oh yeah, I did a birthday charity drive for 988 suicide prevention. We only raised $30, but it was something. Hey, every bit helps. And every bit that we can contribute towards that particular cause, suicide prevention, absolutely one of the more, I mean, they're all beneficial causes, but definitely that one for sure is a highlight, is one that we have highlighted in our circles a great deal. All right, on to the questions for this first email. Number one, he says, if Netflix were to own Warner Brothers, would they still be considered a major studio? Comcast or Paramount buying them, they would not be considered one, if I'm not mistaken. I have to imagine that it would probably be the same thing where Netflix would, officially, I mean, Netflix already is a studio. If they bought Warner Brothers, just because part of this also is because of my lack of faith in Netflix's ability to brand anything. I think they would just assimilate Warner Brothers. I think they just swallow it up and it would just become part of the Netflix giant. And maybe you'd see a WB logo here and there because some marketers like, hey, we've got to keep it. But I don't think they'd handle the brand very well at all. So I think if Comcast or Paramount bought them, it would be similar to what you're seeing with respect to the what Disney has done, where I mean, I guess what is it that Disney has done exactly with respect to Fox in that regard? Because I'll tell you, this actually came up recently, John. When I saw Predator Badlands, that was the first time that I had seen the 20th Century Studios logo on a movie, which told me it had been that long since I'd seen a movie that was like under the Fox pantheon, if you will, but like, after the Disney sale in that regard. And that's what it is. They renamed it 20th Century Studios to distance themselves from Fox News and to officially rebrand it. But Disney, they're the best brand builders on planet Earth, so I'm not surprised that they, structured it that way. I think personally Paramount and Comcast would do the same because they at least, like those two studios at least have shown the ability to manage, maintain, and build brands within their studio structure, right? Whether they have, whether they bought IP, whether they have original IP under their own banner, they've at least been able to maintain brands. Maybe not as well as Disney has, but certainly better than Netflix has in that regard. So, yeah, again, I just don't have great faith in Netflix whatsoever as far as them handling Warner Brothers. I think Warner Brothers would probably, there'd still be a Warner Brothers division under Comcast or Paramount. It just wouldn't be its own autonomous studio anymore, which, there is definitely some sadness there. Like I said, the best case scenario for us as consumers is for Warner Brothers to stay solvent on its own, not to get gobbled up by either Comcast or Paramount, and certainly not Netflix. But it looks like it's going to happen one way or the other, whether we like it or not. So, yeah, our best case scenario is that Warner Brothers remains a division under either Paramount or Universal in that regard. So, because I don't think that's going to happen with Netflix. I think Netflix is going to be dumb about it personally. All right, question 2. He says, I don't know if you've been hearing about this phenomenon called male loneliness epidemic. I think there's some things to debunk about this. This isn't just those who are lonely from being single. Many single women in many countries are now happy being single. That is very much a part of it. But isolated from friendships, this is something I understand quite well, he says. When I first left California for 7 months in 2017 to pursue a life in New York, and having lived in Florida for most of the first half of this decade, I found myself struggling hard to make any new friends in the areas. I still had friends across the pond, and I still had my ex with me, but it wasn't always easy for the two of us to be friends. When I came back to California and got reacquainted with friends, it made me happier. Not the happiest, but happier. Do you try to get together with in-person friends often? No, if I'm being honest, I don't. And I come from a different perspective on that one. It's not that I don't have in-person friends, I do, but none of them are like close. Like a lot of it still is like geographically based, and no, for me, it's just I guess I'm kind of an isolationist in that regard. The most people that I talk to are not really in person, other than coworkers. It's really people online. To be honest with you, I'm not necessarily an in-person friendship type of individual. And again, I feel like a lot of that has to do with location, with where we're at, because a lot of my in-person friends don't live in this area anymore and have moved out. Also, on top of that, I've grown out of a lot of friendships that I had when I was younger, truthfully. Like people, not even just within the last 5 years of how things have changed social politically, but just even before that, just you could see where people were trending in a direction that was going away from what I wanted out of life and what I still want out of life. And it's like, well, I don't need to, continue to consort with these types of people anymore. Like for example, I'm part of a fraternity, and being 100% honest with you, I don't necessarily hold ill will toward everybody in my fraternity except maybe one or two people, but there's also only one or two people in my fraternity that in the last number of years I have seen in person and would care to see in person. One of them I definitely, I won't say I text with him regularly, but around football season and whatnot, because we're both massive Michigan fans, I definitely text with him with respect to stuff like that. And I'll probably get some more messages from him, during college basketball season, because Michigan basketball looks like the polar opposite of Michigan football. They look very dominant right now, and that could be awesome in that regard. But no, I can't say that I'm really an in-person friendship type of individual at this point in my life, because yeah, a lot of those people are not close to where I live, so it's not terribly convenient for me to pursue that. Maybe that'll change. I'm not saying that that can't change. I'm not saying that they can't be any different down the road, but as of right now, no, it is what it is. But yeah, the male loneliness thing, no, I don't feel like the loneliness thing, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard of what you're talking about, but I haven't, you know, dug any deeper into what that is or what it means or what all the parameters surrounding that is. So yeah, I leave that to you guys and anybody else that wants to dive into that. But question three, and this is a longer one. He says this kind of piggybacks off the previous question, but something happened at my birthday dinner a couple of weeks ago. He says my friend traveled far and felt bad that his meal wasn't affordable for him. Everyone chipped in for him and he broke down in tears thanking us and that we're like a second family. I offered Nick a hug. It must be his name, Nick. As a question I always have introspection on is this: do I have an effect on people's lives? It's hard to gauge how often people think about you when you're not always around them, but clearly I must have. Nick, Omid, Tam, and a couple of other friends hold me to a high regard, he says. I know my family does. I know I'm hard on myself and question my self worth a lot, but knowing I had a positive influence on people's lives does make me glad to have contributed to this life. One of the reasons I've continued to listen to your show for all these years, he says, and submit questions, is to show my appreciation and respect for your opinion. Yes, it all started because I like that you defended the DCEU, but now it's evolved to just wanting to get to a place where we can find peace and a safe space from life in general. Do you find the quote, I'm alone but I'm not lonely, a little pastiche, yet also holds significance? Yeah, I mean, honestly, like as far as like I'm alone but I'm not lonely. No, I get that. I do get, and nowadays, especially with digital, especially with the way that social media operates, you know, whenever you're dealing with a real person, yeah, absolutely. That saying has a lot more weight now than it did before in that regard, I would say. So, no, I understand it, and you know, it is interesting because you know, I in the past, you know, we've had people, you know, come and go in the feedback circle for the last number of years, you know, going back to when, you know, it used to be part of the main show and those episodes would be super long, or, you know, going back to when I named it the Hexagon and then did the Hexagon separately and all that. There have been a good amount of people that have come and gone with regards to feedback, but every once in a while you'll get people that will say the same thing, like, hey, I listened to your show because I appreciate your opinion and I'm glad that you have, you know, a rational head, a clear head, and you're not just one of these hate mongers and you believe in subjectivity and all that. And it does feel good. It does feel good to know that there's at least somebody out there that, you know, cares about what you're saying and actually takes it into account and actually can be inspired to be, you know, a nicer, better person as a result of it, a more rational individual. That doesn't mean that you're, you know, not a human being. Of course, we're all human beings. We're all emotional, but, you know, balancing that, right? And finding that middle ground, right? Finding that gray area that 99% of life is in, truthfully, as far as like our perception and our perspective on things in reality, instead of making everything just zero sum, this or that, up or down, left or right, black or white, that type of deal. Yeah. No, I hear you. And I appreciate that you still listen to this show for that reason. And yeah, I think that, you know, we can never necessarily, unless we're like completely arrogant, egotistical people, we never really truly measure our impact on other people's lives. But, you know, you can't say that they're not there. I mean, if you're on this earth and if you've interacted with anyone, then you have made some type of an impact, good or bad, on their lives. And hopefully your impact on people's lives has been more good than bad over the years. I'm fairly certain for you, John, it has been more, well, far more good than bad, I would say, but it's also something that you can't completely control. I mean, you can control how you interact with other people. You can't really control how they respond to your interaction. So it just depends on their rationality and how they take it as well. So, yeah, it's a cool introspective question. Now on to this fourth question. He says, sucks that you didn't get to do the trolley or wharf when you were in San Francisco. I had been in the Bay most of my life, and it was my first time doing the trolley, he says. I don't remember if I ever saw the Full House, but I have been to the park they picnicked at by the end of the opening. What activities do you recommend in Michigan? Well, let's see. I mean, obviously, it's a little different here, and my perspective is also going to be different, John, because I don't go up north. Friends of mine that have lived here their whole lives, they'll tell you, "Oh, go up north. You got to go to Traverse City. You got to go to Mackinac. You got to go to the Sioux. You got to go do all that." Yeah, they'll tell you all of that. I am not. My perspective. I grew up in southeastern Lower Michigan, so my perspective is going to be go to Detroit, go to the city. You know, go check out Campus Martius. Right now they've got the Christmas tree up and the skating rink. So it's It's not quite Rockefeller Center, but it's the closest thing to Rockefeller Center in New York that we have, and it's gorgeous. It's really awesome the way that they do it up every year. I mean, it really, the city has a nightlife right now. You hear all people, always, Detroit's always been the butt of jokes for years nationwide for, being economically barren and, for setting trash cans and cars on fire whenever we win a championship, which is bullshit. That was, one incident that happened in 1984 when the Tigers won the World Series. It just got blown up and turned into a punchline. It's nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's, not a negative connotation that anybody should have about the city, especially now, because the city is definitely on the rise and on the up and come for sure, no doubt. So really, I would just say go to the city, go to Detroit. I mean, there's plenty of sites, there's plenty of museums, there's Michigan Central. There's a ton of locales. And the Fox Theater. Any place for like a sporting event or a concert, like Ford Field or Little Caesars Arena or Comerica Park. Any of those places, certainly. I mean, just go to the city. Go to the city of Detroit. There is no shortage of attractions and no shortage of places to go now where you can have fun, have a good time, get a bite to eat, have a nice time out on the town. And I wasn't always able to say that as a Detroiter, like as a native Detroiter. But I tell you what, about a year or so ago, my sisters and I, we spent some time down at Central Kitchen. We were there for like a good couple of hours, and we were just kind of blown away at the nightlife that the city has now. Because we're used to seeing that in other places like Chicago and other big cities, and for our city to finally have that now is remarkable. It's awesome. It's one of the reasons that, truthfully, we need to move back closer to it. If I'm being 100% with you on that, but yeah, that's what I would say. Just go to the city. Go to the city of Detroit and enjoy the sights and sounds there in that regard. That's from my perspective. Like I said, you talk to anybody else in Michigan, they might tell you to go up north, and that's fine. If you like the outdoorsy stuff, you like hiking, you like, Sleeping Bear Dunes and all that, that's cool. Hey, more power to you. I'm a city person, so I'm more of the industrialized tech and all that stuff. So those are my recommendations. That's my perspective personally. But it also sounds like you've got a list of recommendations here. You said next time you come to the Bay, here are some activities I suggest. Oh, you've got a list of 8 of them. Let's see. 1, ferry. Yep, heard about that. 2, walking on the Golden Gate Bridge and or Bay Bridge, but as you said, being afraid of heights might be challenging. Yep, might be. Might be a little, but I'm willing to look into that next time. 3, Berkeley Hiking Trail is nice. All right. 4, Mary's Pizza Shack. Tammy and I can treat you and Shonda when you both visit in the future. 5, Round 1 Arcade and Bowling. 6, Zeppelin Comic Shop. 7, Bodega Bay. I mentioned, yes, that was a location in the Birds, right? And 8, Nintendo Store, San Francisco, unless you already rent. Okay, didn't go, but totally saw it, right? Like, and I forget if we walked past it or if we rode past it either on the BART. It might have been. But yes, I'm aware that this place exists, and it is definitely somewhere that I would absolutely visit next time we go out there. Without question, yes, that is definitely on the list for sure. Thank you for the suggestions. Number 5, oh yeah, I saw Sonic dressed as the Flash. Still not planning on seeing these films anytime soon. Curious to know what would have to happen to change your mind. One last thing, let me know when you saw the Wicked movies yet. I have thoughts that are also on Facebook and Threads. All right, so yeah, this is an interesting picture. So yeah, it's Sonic dressed as the Flash. So it's a mashup, but it's an understandable mashup, obviously, because of their abilities and the speed and whatnot. As far as when I will see the Sonic movies, you know what? Truthfully, it may happen around the time that I decide to really start to disengage further with social media. I'm at this point now with social media where I'm really only on it because of the FLITEcast. I'm really only on it because of a way to promote and, like share what I do with this show and on my website. The second I figure out how to get along, how to do all of that without social media, I will disengage because social media is toxic across the board. And I mean that from an institutionalized, like, corporatist standpoint. All of the corporate algorithms, no matter what app you use, whether it's X, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Threads, they're all designed to get you to be antagonist. Like all I have to do, and I've tested this so many times. I post about one particular subject, whether I tag that subject or not. I use a keyword, and the algorithm floods me with everything that I don't want to see. Like for the last, 24 hours or so I've been posting about Michigan, Ohio State. And what has it done? It's done nothing but flood me with inflammatory takes about Michigan, Ohio State. And it's just like, not interested, not interested, not interested. It's like, why would you not? The algorithm isn't designed to actually read what I wrote. It's only designed to throw antagonistic shit at me. And that's all social media does, is throw antagonistic things in your path for you to respond to, right? It's trying to piss you off. It's trying to rage you out for engagement. And that's disgusting. So to me, I feel like whenever I see the Sonic thing, when somebody comes up with like, I remember that time when we all fortunately bullied the creators into the Sonic, that clearly is just rage bait. That clearly is just trolls and people, maladjusted individuals, if they're even real people that I don't need to be paying attention to in the first place. So what it's really going to come down to, John, is I'm going to have to sit down and really go through what happened with that whole scenario in terms of why they changed the design. Read the actual story, because nobody's really provided me with the actual story at all as far as precisely what happened with those movies and why the redesign actually occurred, right? The nuts and bolts of it. Like, I'd have to do a deep dive of research into that. And then at that point, I would then watch, like, if it turned out to be an amicable thing, which I imagine it is now with the creatives, then yeah, it's just the people that champion the idea of social media and internet bullying. That's what I can't get behind. That's the bullshit of it. That's the nonsense. And that's why I haven't watched those movies. So once I get past that, and once I determine that it's not the slippery slope, even though we're well past so many slippery slopes in life at this point, truthfully, then that's probably when I will finally watch those films at some point. I tell you what, it won't happen before a Super Mario Galaxy movie. I'll say that. The Super Mario Galaxy movie is coming out in April. It won't happen before that. I will not watch the Sonic movies before I watch the Mario sequel, because Mario is that is my devout video game franchise character, my devout video game franchise. So, yes, I will pay my respects to him before I give any new respects to Sonic on the big screen. So, that much I can tell you for sure. No doubt about that. Also, I don't know when I'm going to see Wicked, but I will definitely let everybody know. Like, it'll be very obvious when I have seen it in that regard. So, stay tuned for that at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. All right. The second email that you sent it was really just news that pro wrestler Becky Lynch will be in Star Trek. Yeah, isn't she going to be in Starfleet Academy, if I'm not mistaken? I saw this on Trek.com, or was it Trek Core or was it Trek.com? It was Trek Movie. That's right. There's a couple of different Trek accounts that I follow. Is she being credited by her real name, Rebecca Quinn, or just Becky Lynch? I don't know. I'm not sure. But apparently her character's name is Lieutenant Ya, and she is going to be aboard the new ship, the Athena, which is part school, part ship. Actually, it's a school and a ship in the 32nd century, which is where Starfleet Academy takes place, because it is a successor to Star Trek Discovery, and in the timeline, that's where that show ended up for its final 3 seasons, if you will. So yeah, definitely news. Definitely crossing of the streams, if you will. Someone from WWE taking part in Star Trek and becoming part of that storied franchise, the best franchise in the world, in my opinion. So there is that. And then the other email that you sent, you said this was optional. You said you watched Dutch this Thanksgiving. He says, I remember seeing it briefly on TV as a kid, the scene where Doyle sleeps and drools on the sex worker, LOL. Yeah. He says, I can see it's not really a film for everyone. It has flaws, but I find it entertaining enough. Yeah, I talked about that on my flight review for Thanksgiving, which I did post on the Patreon free tier. So anybody that wants to give a listen to that, I talked about the John Hughes Thanksgiving movies, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Dutch. That one is available on the free tier if you are a member of the free tier of patreon.com/theflightcast. I did make that available because I talked about doing some more stuff for the free tier on that site as well, in addition to the paid stuff that I do. Talking about Snyderverse a lot lately, apparently. But yeah, it's not a movie for everybody, Dutch. And definitely, yeah, it's not a perfect movie. I don't think any John Hughes movie is necessarily perfect, not even Planes, Trains. But it's still, I think that the heart and the message that are inherent for those movies, they resonate with me. And but probably because I'm a child of the era, that grew up, with those types of movies, like I've said, many times, and I've seen that movie so many times, and it'd been a while since I'd watched it, and it was interesting to see what I remembered and what I needed to reconnect with, if you will, when I watched it again, night before Thanksgiving. But yeah, I hear you. I'm glad you watched it. I figured it probably was something that you had seen in passing, and I feel like a lot of people that say they haven't seen it, that probably is exactly what it is. Because like I said, it was on cable a ton, and instant, like getting replayed a ton, and for all of the bluster about it being a John Hughes film, it having Ed O'Neill and Ethan Embry and Joe Beth Williams and Christopher McDonald. I mean, there's so many reasons that it should have had a reissue of a physical release within the last decade or so. The fact that it hasn't, and it's one of the most rare Blu-rays that you could possibly look for, is just, I don't know. It's still shocking to me in many ways. It's the height of underappreciation for a movie like that. And I know the movie has a cult following. I know there are people that enjoy that movie. It's not just me and Dave the Film Junkie. I know there are others that enjoy that movie, and that movie is sacred and special to them for a number of reasons as a Thanksgiving holiday movie. But I'm glad that you saw it and that you found it entertaining enough through all of its subjective flaws. So thank you as always for the emails, John. Greatly appreciated. Looking forward to more of your feedback. And thank you for the recommendations, if you will, for San Fran. And yes, I will let you know when I see Sonic. Everybody will know when I've seen the Sonic movies finally, which again will be after Mario Galaxy, and when I finally watch both of the Wicked movies, because I do need to see both of them. Need to see the first one before watching the new one that just came out, Wicked for Good. All right, next up is Alex De Silva with an email titled Flight Chat number 27, Anamoya? Did I pronounce that right? I want to look this up because I'm not sure. Hang on, Anamoya, because I don't know what this is. What is the definition? A neologism. Hang on, nope, I'm not using the not using the AI. I hate this. Every time you Google something and there's like the AI overview. No, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. All right, Wiktionary. This isn't an actual, like, I can't get a dictionary, like this isn't a dictionary.com. Like, okay, etymology. Coined by American author and neologist John Koenig in 2012, whose project, The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, aims to come up with new words for emotions that currently lack words, constructed from ancient Greek, with reference to anemosis, the warping of a tree by high wind until it seems to bend backward. Okay, what does it mean? Nostalgia for a time or place one has never known. Okay. Nostalgia for a time or place one has never known. All right. So now that we've looked up what Alex's email is titled, let's see exactly what he's talking about here. So he says, Hey Ray, the hype for the biggest sporting event in the world continues to grow. We're now only about 7 months away from the World Cup this June. Tickets were recently released on a lottery system, so if you wanted the chance to attend a game in person, you had to sign up for the drawing. I wasn't selected, he says, but a few people I know were. Most were put off by the crazy prices. Just the initial group stage touted prices of $1,500, with the elimination rounds later on in the tournament costing thousands of dollars more. You're not going to like this next part, he says, but someone from my inner circle bought 3 group stage tickets with the intent to resell them. He's going to make a pretty penny because people will pay to attend these games. Yeah, he can burn in hell, and I hope his balls fall off. Truthfully, I'm not even kidding. That is, no, not good. Not at all. I despise scalpers. So that may seem harsh, but that is how I feel. Scalpers are the bane of humanity in that regard. Capitalism, especially late stage capitalism, which many people are saying we're experiencing now, can be the bane of our existence in that regard. And that's disgusting. Yeah, he's going to make a pretty penny, but it's unfortunate that he's even allowed to do that, truthfully. But hey, that's just how I feel. But, I know there are others that will agree with me on that. Either way. He says, I recently finished Mass Effect Andromeda, and I maintain that this game easily has the most fun combat in the entire series. The jump jet really makes such a difference. Zooming and dashing all around the battlefield while unleashing biotic powers and your barrage of weapons is just too much fun. The story was good too. The game caught a lot of flack upon release due to all the bugs, but I experienced no serious game-breaking issues. This is part of the reason why I never buy games upon release. If you're willing to wait a bit, like I am, then you'll get games at a much lower price and with most, if not all, major bugs squashed and patched. Okay, I do agree with, first of all, I agree that I like Andromeda. I do. I didn't finish it. At some point, I would like to finish it. I also agree with the idea of not buying games at launch, especially ones that are so heavily graphically dependent, like Mass Effect Andromeda is. Same thing happened with Cyberpunk 2047. I know that's an infamous one as far as like opening day bugs that happen, right? So I agree. It really not only with that, but also with systems, right? I remember when the Xbox 360 came out, that was kind of a big thing where the red ring of death, the red circle of death, was a massive thing because of early chipsets with the earlier systems, and people waited for like the Jasper chip that they put in the Xbox 360 Elite and other systems after that. Like they waited a year before they bought it, and I get it. I absolutely get it. Don't buy it at launch, right? I mean, I know people, it's all about the immediacy and the urgency, but no, I wait until a good, decent amount of time. Now, I don't know if it should be 8 years, because that's how old Andromeda is, 8 years. I mean, yes, of course, within 8 years, you would hope every bug had gotten figured out and had gotten fixed at this point. But yeah, I do agree in waiting a a particular amount of time and not buying a game like that at launch just to clear all the bugs. Yeah, whether it's a game or a gaming system, just to clear all the bugs out and to get all the patches and whatnot, like updated for better gameplay in that regard. I do agree with that. He says, random story. A few years ago, I received an email from my local theater with free tickets to a showing of Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. When we arrived, I noticed that in the very last row, the people sitting there were hooked up to these wires and sensors as if biometric readings were being taken. I wonder if this was some sort of weird experiment by the studio to read people's responses to humor during the movie, to gauge their interest levels across different scenes in the film. I can't think of why else they would have bio readings taken during a movie, but it was fascinating. That seems weird, but apparently there might be some precedent for this, because looking this up, if we go to idtechwire.com, which I don't really know exactly what the validity of this website is, but this is an article 6 years ago that said Showcase Cinemas is leveraging biometric technology in an effort to convince people to go to the theater. The cinema chain conducted a study in which it monitored heart rate and skin conductance to measure the audience's engagement levels during movie screenings, and unsurprisingly concluded that audiences were much more satisfied when watching at a theater than they were when watching at home. To carry out the study, Showcase screened the film Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle for participants in two different settings. One group watched the film at a Showcase Cinemas location in Revere, Massachusetts. The other watched the film in a simulated home environment at Schlesinger Associates in Boston. The home environment included couches, a TV, and consumer-grade lighting and sound features. Jumanji was chosen because Showcase determined that the film played well in both settings and would not bias the audience. It says data was collected through biometric sensors placed on the wrist, collarbone, and hand. It showed that those who watched the film in the theater had much higher levels of neurological excitement and registered that excitement much more frequently throughout the film. After the movie, the participants were asked to complete an online survey to supplement the biometric findings. The survey revealed that theater viewers were more satisfied with the picture clarity, screen size, sound quality, atmosphere, and seat comfort, and also left with a better opinion of the film and were more likely to talk about it with other people. It would be prudent, it says, to view the results with some skepticism given the study's limited methodology and Showcase's obvious conflict of interest. All of the study's 80 participants were men between the ages of 18 to 44, so the findings may not be representative of the general population. Even so, the study speaks to the growing influence of biometric tech, which is perceived to confer a degree of scientific legitimacy to ordinary consumer data. Disney is already using facial biometrics to monitor audience engagement, while pre-show is using gaze tracking to offer people free movie tickets in exchange for watching mobile ads. That was an article written for idtechwire.com by Eric Weiss on October 22nd, 2019. So clearly, you were in that theater. You were in that theater, Alex. They literally a Showcase Cinemas location in Revere, Massachusetts. That's precisely where you were in that regard. So, yeah, I think we've stumbled on exactly what it was. You were there in the middle of an actual experiment where they were trying to measure audience engagement and how much audiences prefer the theater over home viewing. And I can't imagine that this isn't the thing still going. Now, I don't know about how all the other biometrics have evolved in the last 6 years, especially since this was a pre-pandemic article, but it wouldn't surprise me if, especially with how, Hollywood is, white knuckle panic about the box office now and all the talk and discussion that we've had about earnings and, ticket sales and whatnot, it would not surprise me one bit if now, especially in the midst of the streaming age going the way that it is, that more experiments like this, more data like this isn't being collected. I think it would be. I think more than likely it is. So wouldn't surprise me if you saw this again at some point. But yeah, that's what it was. We've completely determined what it was that you were looking at or what it was that you saw in that theater. So cool. Really cool. He says, I recently watched Jurassic World Rebirth and I liked it. Some people complain that there were too many mutant dinosaurs, but I didn't mind that at all. In fact, I found myself looking forward to seeing what new crazy designs the movie would give us next. Now that I've watched the full series, here's my updated series rankings. Okay, in order. 1. Jurassic Park. 2. Jurassic World. 3. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. 4. Jurassic World Rebirth. 5. Jurassic Park 3. 6. Jurassic World Dominion. And 7. The Lost World Jurassic Park. He says, I could honestly see Rebirth easily surpassing Fallen Kingdom on future rewatches and maybe, just maybe, even Jurassic World. All right, so I know for me, I definitely hold the Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park in higher regard for myself. Like me, probably, if I had to rank them, I would probably put, like right now, and I have not seen, I say this, having only seen Fallen Kingdom once and having not seen either Dominion or Rebirth, I will tell you that for me, Lost World Jurassic Park is probably my number one. It is. I don't care about all the people complaining about the San Diego T-Rex stuff. No, that does not bother me. All the stuff on the island prior, love it. Absolutely love it. Seriously. Like the whole premise and whatnot that they do in that movie, love it, love it, love it. And to me, I can fight between that and the first one as far as being the best ones. Because the first one is the first one. And the first one is the genuine one. I saw that in theaters and I remember like the feeling that I had as a kid watching that with my dad and my sister for the first time. Like that was a hell of an experience to have at AMC theaters in Laurel Park, AMC Laurel Park theaters in Livonia. That was awesome. So I can fight between those two as far as number one and number two. And then Jurassic World would probably definitely be third, right? Like, and I'll figure out like where it sits. Like those are my top three for sure. And then from that point, you know, I don't know. I'd have to do a rewatch, and I can totally do a full rewatch if I just get Rebirth at some point. I'll have all seven, but I've already got the other six because I got that awesome tin that had the seven of them together before they decided they were going to do Rebirth. So, like, I just need to do a rewatch and then also, you know, finally watch Dominion for the first time and then watch Rebirth. That'd be a nice marathon to do. I don't know. I have to figure out when I'm going to do that, but yeah, definitely want to get through that. But that's where I sit with respect to that. I mean, the first one, I mean, anybody that puts the first one first, I'm not going to knock that at all. I totally get that. And I get Jurassic World being rated that high. I think Fallen Kingdom and Rebirth being that high, like being third and fourth, I think that's interesting. Putting them over Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic Park 3, it wasn't horrible from what I remember. Like, it has its issues. There's definitely some annoying stuff in it, but I don't know. I feel like it was still okay, right? I'd certainly watch Lost World over it. Me personally, I would watch Lost World over Jurassic Park 3. I would. And I remember not liking Fallen Kingdom enough to not put it over the Lost World in that regard. And certainly not over either the first film or Jurassic World in that regard. So yeah, I gotta, I gotta find a way to rewatch this franchise and to also finally watch Dominion and Rebirth and get some thoughts on it and update my rankings as well for sure. But all right. He says, I tried watching Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme, but I fell asleep, and since then, I felt no interest or desire to go and finish the movie. What are your thoughts on Anderson's directorial style? Of his work, I've seen Asteroid City and the Roald Dahl shorts on Netflix, and the shtick has already gotten old to me. Quick right-angle camera movements, fast-paced dialogue, square set designs, etc. It's pretty interesting from a visual standpoint, but doesn't always make for the most interesting movies. It can feel quite constricting at times. Yeah, I disagree. I think Wes Anderson is clearly an auteur, and I appreciate that he's different. Because one of the things that I really don't like is when filmmakers all do the same shit. I want auteurs. I want people that put their own stamp and their own signature on a film. And if that means that everything that he does is not like Nolan, is not like Spike Lee, is not like Steven Soderbergh, is not like Scorsese, is not like Tarantino, is not like Tim Burton or anybody else that I also really enjoy, then great. Fantastic. The word that I would use, and mind you, I've seen Royal Tenenbaums, and I've seen Rushmore. Those are the Wes Anderson movies for sure that I know I've seen. And I think nearly all of his feature films have a Criterion Collection release. So I will be honest with you, during a couple of, not this year, but during a couple of their 50% off sales at Barnes& and Noble, because they run it twice a year in July and November, I went ahead and blind bought like a bunch of the rest of them. Like I have Life Aquatic, I have Bottle Rocket, I have Darjeeling. I think I have Darjeeling. I'm looking over. Do I see it? Do I see Darjeeling? Maybe I don't. Oh no, I do. I do. I do have Darjeeling. Okay. I have Fantastic Mr. Fox. I have Moonrise Kingdom. I have Grand Budapest Hotel. I have Isle of Dogs. No, I don't have Isle of Dogs. I don't have Isle of Dogs. I don't have French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun. I don't know if Asteroid City. I don't think Asteroid City has a Criterion release yet. I'm not sure. Maybe it does. I'd have to look that up real quick here. No, it does not. At least not yet. And maybe it's because it's a Focus Features, right? The other ones were not Focus, I don't believe. The other ones were like Columbia, Touchstone, Fox Searchlight. Oh, wait, Moonrise was Focus. Okay, so yeah, maybe it's not that. I don't know. But either way, yeah, based on the strength of Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore, I determined that I liked Wes Anderson's style and totally want to see the rest of it. The word that I would use is kitschy. I think his films have a very kitschy style. And what's the best way? Like, what's the definition of kitschy, if you will? Like, if I can look for this, of art, objects, or design, well, considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garishness or sentimentality, but sometimes appreciated in an ironic or knowing way. That's, I think, a harsher definition than I thought that kitschy would be, because I don't necessarily think of kitschy as like in a negative, but like considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garishness and sentimentality. I'm sure you would probably agree with that, Alex. But no, I don't mean for it to be in poor taste, but I do think that it's appreciated in a knowing way because of the garishness or the sentimentality. I mean, that's just the feeling that I have when I look at his movies. It comes from the German word kitsch, which means gaudy or trash, very sentimental or emotional. Synonyms: pathetic, which that's interesting, pathetic instead of pathetic. I guess it's because of bathos and pathos, probably. Drippy, hokey, maudlin, mawkish, mushy, sappy, schmaltzy, schmalzy, sentimental, slushy, soppy, soupy. Okay, schmaltzy, again, that's another word that I wouldn't count as. I feel like a lot of these words are negative. I feel like a lot of these words have like negative connotations to it. I wouldn't use a negative connotation towards the word kitschy or the word sentimental. There's a hotel, the Bavarian Inn in Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is, not, it's down the street from Bronner's. It's like Frankenmuth is a German town in Michigan that is known for like Christmas themes and breweries and whatnot, right? A lot of the really cool microbreweries in Michigan come out of Frankenmuth. I've stayed at the Bavarian Inn a couple of times because of my old TV station. They used to have Christmas parties there, and they were actually awesome. They really were. I mean, it was only about a 25-30 minute drive from where I lived, and yeah, it was a cool thing. The open bar, full buffet, Zender's chicken, all that stuff. Yeah, it was cool. But the thing is, the hotel is really kitschy. It's old, and like the carpeting is like evocative of like the 60s and 70s, and they have like a picture of a different German family in each room. Like it's not like, it's not like socio-political stuff or anything like that, at least not that I could detect, right? And it wasn't like they looked. I wasn't like, I didn't have my guard up being a black man like staying at this hotel. It's not that. I've never heard of that. I mean, I'm sure there have been instances, but I've never heard of anything like that happening to any black or brown people that have stayed there. But it is the definition of what I would call kitschy, and something about it just felt quaint. Something about it just felt like, stepping out of time for a second, and not necessarily being in a modern era with things. And that's how I feel about Wes Anderson's movies. And again, I've only seen Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore, but I really like Royal Tenenbaums. I do. I really like that movie. Royal Tenenbaums is probably one of my favorite Gene Hackman movies. And it's also the movie that I tolerate Ben Stiller the most in by far, because he actually plays a character that isn't stupidly ridiculous, like as opposed to everything else I feel like he does in his career, subjectively speaking, in my opinion, right? So, do I like him more in Royal Tenenbaums and Tropic Thunder? Hell yes. And no, I will not touch Zoolander with a 10-foot pole, or, and the 5 minutes that he's in Happy Gilmore, it's like, okay, get him off the screen, like leave him alone or whatever. I'm really not a Ben Stiller fan, so yeah, that's how I would describe Wes Anderson's style. There's just something out of time and like kitschy about it that I do like, and I like that he is a different type of filmmaker and that is his style and that he has made that his style. Is this where the Anamoya comes from? Is this where the title of the email comes from, perhaps? Or maybe, actually, no. I think that's going to happen. I think you're going to touch on that later on in this episode, or later on in this email, I should say. But yeah, that's how I feel about Wes Anderson's filmmaking. It's very unique. I wouldn't call him one of my favorite filmmakers. I mean, that may change after I finally watch more of his movies because, like I said, I've blind bought just about all the ones on Criterion except for French Dispatch and Isle of Dogs, which I still would like to get at some point. Maybe I can swing that before this most recent 50% off sale is over because there's still like a week left. But either way, yeah, no, I do like his movies, right? They're very kitschy, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation, to be honest with you. So, um, but yeah, I have a lot of catching up before I get to like the Phoenician Scheme or anything like that. But I probably wouldn't fall asleep unless I was tired. Like I usually don't fall asleep in movies unless I'm tired. There's never been a movie that has bored me so much that I have fallen asleep without being tired. That just does not happen with me in that regard. So, anyway, continuing on with the rest of Alex's email, he says, I'm a firm believer in the fact that Batman did indeed kill Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, despite Batman saying otherwise. If the ability to save someone from death is fully in your reach, yet you choose to walk away and do nothing, that's the same thing as killing that person. Agree or disagree? Well, I feel like there is a degree of splitting hairs in that regard. I don't think it's the same as killing that person. I think that because I do think there's a difference between actively killing someone and preventing their death. Like he even says it, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Basically saying, I am going to allow you to be the victim of your own devices. It's just like how with like Spider-Man. Did Spider-Man kill the Goblin or did the Goblin kill himself in the first Spider-Man film? Because he's the one that sent the glider after Peter. Peter just avoided it and like it stabbed him in that regard, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Like did he really kill or did the villain just succumb to their own devices? And so that's what I would say about Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, right? I don't think it's the same as killing that person. I do think that there is a degree of difference in that regard because actively killing somebody with a malicious intent or whatever intent is because you feel like you're taking the action to remove them from this earth as opposed to allowing other actions outside of your control because he's not the one that blew up the track. He's not like Gordon blew up the track. Gordon has more to blame as far as killing Ra's al Ghul than Batman does in that regard because he's the one that blew up the track. Whether Batman told him to do so or not, it was really about it's the trolley problem, right? You're going to take him out in order to save the other residents of Gotham from mass insanity in that regard, right? So yeah, I don't agree. I don't think that Batman actually killed Ra's al Ghul. Did he kill others in the movie? Did he kill others in the TDK trilogy? Yes. Yes, he did. Batman has a kill count in the TDK trilogy. I don't count Ra's as one of them in that regard. And remind me, Alex, are you the one that was questioning? Because this happened. I know this happened. Because this comes up anytime Scott is on Vodka Stream or like I talk to him and this name comes up and he keeps saying Ra's al Ghul. I remember it was either you or somebody else on the show that was questioning whether or not that's actually how it's pronounced. I feel like it was you. I don't remember how long ago that was. If you could like remind me if that was a conversation that we had about calling him either Raish or Ra's al Ghul, and there were actual people, like Middle Eastern people, that say, no, it is not Raish. That was an Americanized thing because they felt like it was like for PC purposes to change that name. I forget exactly how that came down. I know we had that conversation. I would like more clarity. I'd like more clarification so that I can remember it this time so that if this ever comes up and somebody berates me for saying Raz, I can bring that up and be like, no, actually, I'm saying Raz because of this and because of that, because I'm big on like getting pronunciations right and whatnot. And if it really is Raz, and if it's not, like an Americanized thing, if it's not a PC thing that like the Batman the Animated Series creators did in the time because they thought they were being PC about it, then yeah, I would like to know that. Please remind. I feel like it was you that brought this up, Alex. If it wasn't, sorry, wrong person. But if it was, please remind me if that was the case. And what was the conversation that we had about it? What did we determine on that? All right, next, Alex says, something I've recently identified about my own personal fandom and the way I engage with stories is this. I don't like speculating. When TV shows are coming out, a lot of people call it fun to come up with theories and to guess what's going to happen next and try to figure out things before the show presents them to us. But honestly, that type of thing actually takes away some of the fun for me. I don't like when there's a surprise on its way in a future episode, but it's already been spoiled by someone online who's gone through with a magnifying glass and figured the twist out. I much prefer to discuss the recent episode, craft decisions, and how the new episode built off previous episodes rather than look to what's coming next. That's likely a weird perspective and no doubt puts me in the minority of TV watchers, but hey, I like what I like. I'm 1,000% with you. 1,000%. And listen, I'll take it further. I've brought this up before on the show, Alex. Speculation, we can't handle it as fans. We can't. We absolutely cannot. I don't care what anybody says. We are incapable of handling speculation because here's what happens. Speculation changes our perspective on whatever it is that we're watching. Whether it's a TV show or a movie, speculation is how people lead to the idea of Tom Cruise being Tony Stark variant in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and then being bitterly disappointed that he wasn't there in that regard, right? That's an extreme example, but it's real. It's an existing example. That's what speculation does. When fans sit and think tank about what they think they're going to see in a movie or a TV show, it's to their own detriment because now what they're doing is they're building up their own expectations for what they're going to see. And they can tell us till they're blue in the face, I'm not building up my own expectations. I'm open. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because you're speculating on something that you would like to see, or you're speculating on something that you wouldn't like to see. So if either of those things happen, right, either you're going to be disappointed on some level that you already figured out what the twist was going to be, or you're going to be mad that the twist wasn't what you thought it was because you weren't right, right? Too many fans do this, and it colors their perspective of the actual art that we're watching. And instead of giving the artist the benefit of the doubt in terms of telling the story as they chose to tell it to us, you were instead attaching your feelings and your perspective on this story to what you were speculating on, to your own beliefs, to your own thoughts, to your own, like, hey, I think it'll be this, I think it'll be that, right? Like, just like the people that hated The Last Jedi. I guarantee you, a large amount of people that despise The Last Jedi to this day, it's because their expectations were completely subverted. They went into that movie, just like I did, thinking, hey, it's going to be this, or hey, it's going to be that. And when it wasn't anything that they thought of, they hated it. And whether they admit this or not, they will sit there and swear up and down, no, I don't like it because it does this and it flies in the face of George Lucas doing that and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau would have done a better job with this, yada, yada, yada. They'll give you all these bullshit excuses. But when it comes down to it, they don't like being wrong. They don't like being proved wrong. They don't like their expectations being subverted. It's like when somebody, like you've heard this. I heard that there was a clip, Della Reese in Harlem Nights. She was upset that there was no hash left. And that he didn't tell her, that Red Fox didn't tell her there was no hash left. He's like, yeah, I got my mouth all ready for hash and there's none left, whatever, something to that effect. That's how people behave, right? You get a taste for something, you get a thought for something, you get a preference for something, and you ready your senses for it. And then when it doesn't happen, you're deflated, you're disappointed, you're depressed in some cases. And that's bullshit. That's selfish bullshit, in my opinion, because now you're not treating that artist's work fairly. You're basing it off of your own expectations without being open-minded to give that artist the benefit of the doubt for the story that they are telling, right? That's what I try to do. That's why I no longer have any rules or have any speculation for what Star Wars is going to do after The Last Jedi. And because of what happened with the season finale of season 2 of Peacemaker, I will no longer have those expectations for what James Gunn is going to do. And I have tried my best to not let any of my speculation or expectations affect my perception of any of his work prior. I really have. I feel like I've done a really good job of that because I stay open-minded, right? You know, and I don't talk so much about how, well, I wish he would have done this and I wish he would have done that. So many people, so many fans talk about what they wish a director or a writer would have done more than what the director or the writer actually did. I don't give a shit how much you disliked it. I don't. I don't care. Like, you don't have to like it. You don't have to enjoy everything. It's all subjective, right? You can feel however you want about it. But I would rather talk about what the artist actually did than what they didn't do that you didn't appreciate. Right? I don't care what your idea is. I don't care how you would have written The Last Jedi. I don't care how you would have written BVS, and made it to be world's finest. I don't care how you would have reshaped the MCU. I don't give a shit about how you would have rewritten or redone somebody else's movie. I don't want to talk about that. You're not the director. You're not the writer. They are. I want to talk about what their work actually did and give them the benefit of the doubt within that instead of basing it off of my own expectations. So I'm with you. I don't like speculating either, because all speculating does is inflate your expectations and put you in a mindset where you get your brain ready for something. And even if you know that you're not going to see it, there's still going to be a part of you that's disappointed that you didn't see it because you built your own perspective and expectations up too much. And you can swear up and down to me, not you, Alex, but these other people, anybody else listening, can swear up and down to me that you don't do that. You do. Yes, you do, because you're human and you have emotions. You can deny it all you like. Everybody does it. That is the point, right? Like, especially with any character that you have an emotional attachment to, any character that you've been invested in for a decent portion of your life, whether it is Batman, whether it is Superman, whether it is Spider-Man, whether it is Wolverine and the X-Men, Fantastic Four, whoever it is, you have your own personal connection to these characters, and that informs your perspective on how you think they should be adapted. And it does affect whether you were open-minded to another writer and director's interpretation or not. It does. It spells it out. That's why people don't like Man of Steel. That's why there are people that don't like James Gunn's Superman. They're coming from their own perspective because either Zack Snyder or James Gunn did things that they didn't want done, that they thought didn't belong in a Superman film. And they're allowed to feel that way. I just do not give a shit. Just being honest, I don't care. That is not a discussion I wish to have. So that's why I don't speculate. Because I'm not here to sit, and there is no fun in speculating on how much you're going to hate a thing when it does the opposite of what you want. Right? There's no fun in that at all. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about how disappointed you were that this movie didn't go that way. Look, there were choices that Taika Waititi made in both Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. Do you hear me talking about how much I dislike the choices that he made in those movies? No, because he made those movies. Those were his choices that he decided. And look, plenty of people enjoyed it. Plenty of people enjoyed Ragnarok, made over $900 million. People enjoyed Thor Love and Thunder. It still blows me away that it made $760 million. People enjoy both of those films. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. But for me, I don't feel the need to belabor, how I felt about his choices. I will talk to you about what I enjoyed out of those movies. I will most certainly talk to you about that. I have no issues with that with respect to that. But being negative because, my speculation on what was going to happen in either of those movies, I'm the one that literally wrote a blog piece in the early days of the Flightcast asking if Thor Ragnarok was trying to chase an Oscar because of its cast. Because I looked at everybody involved. I looked at Cate Blanchett. I looked at Carl Urban. I looked at Jeff Goldblum, and I said, well, I'm detecting, outside of Goldblum, I'm detecting a hint of Lord of the Rings here. Are we trying to go for an Oscar? No, they weren't. No, they were not. They went in the completely opposite direction as far as that goes. That's fine. You know what? It is what it is. Okay? That's where they're at. But as far as speculating, no, that's why I don't write pieces like that anymore. Because, well, why? For what purpose? So, because it's not fun. It's not fun for me. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people claim that it's fun, and then part of the fun for them is the misery. Part of the fun for them is being depressed, is being angry, is showing their rage on social media, because now they can contribute to the discourse. It's not discourse, it's bullshit. But whatever, that's part of the fun for them, unfortunately. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. Again, whether they admit it or not, that's where a lot of their emotions lie, in my humble opinion. So I'm right there with you, Alex. I don't like speculating either. I really don't. I would rather talk about what the artist actually did as opposed to what they didn't do that I thought they were going to do, right? Or what they did do that I thought they were going to do, and now I'm spoiled because it's over, or because I got it right, and it wasn't a surprise. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. 100%. That may be one of that particular paragraph. I don't know. There are times, Alex, where we just agree 1,000% on things, and this is one of those times that I agree with you 1,000% in terms of not liking, not digging speculation for any of this shit any further, with respect to your reasons and some of the stuff I brought up as well. All right, so a little bit more on Alex's email here. He says, I've spent the past month rewatching Stranger Things, and I just recently finished season 4 right on time for the final season. I know you haven't seen the show, but season 4 contains the famous running up that hill scene, where one of the characters, Max, is running for her life to the safe harbor of her friends, while Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill plays orchestrally over the score. She's literally running up a hill to get back to her party. In the show, they're D&D kids, which is why they call themselves the Party. It's such a good moment, he says. One of the things I love when shows or movies do is when an emotional moment is happening for a character and you see quick silent flashes on screen of the character interacting with other members of the cast from earlier episodes or movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 also had a very nicely done example of this. I'd have to rewatch that movie in order to know exactly what it is you're talking about, but I'll go with it. He says, I was honestly a little surprised to hear you still haven't seen Stranger Things. An 80s kid like you would probably love it. Fun fact that you may or may not know. Here we go. Anamoya, of course he defined it, is the term for feeling nostalgic for a time you never lived through. Funnily enough, a lot of people from my generation feel this way about the 80s thanks in large part to shows like Stranger Things. Riding bikes through the neighborhood, spending summers at the mall, hanging with friends at the arcade. The show is very atmospheric in that way. If you ever want to watch Stranger Things, be extra careful online this next month. The hype and anticipation for this show is at an all-time boiling point, and spoilers will surely be flying left and right. Part 1 of Season 5 just dropped, and I've managed to stay spoiler-free. Let's hope that continues, he says. Part 2 and the overall finale of the show drops this Christmas. If you're feeling really adventurous, you could totally manage a full season watch through over this next month. Each season only has around 8 episodes, so it definitely wouldn't be impossible. You'd have so much cool stuff awaiting you as a first-time viewer, so it'd be neat to hear your perspective from that angle. Then again, like you always say, there's too much stuff to watch, but hey, it'd be worth it. All right, let's look this up. Because all right, and yes, of course, even though I totally went on down the rabbit hole, once I saw the word, because that's what I do when I see words I don't recognize. I'm like, okay, what the hell does this word mean? But of course, he defined it and explained it totally, and he was talking about Stranger Things. All right, so I'm googling this, which of course can be a little that can be tricky as far as avoiding spoilers. But apparently, all right, Stranger Things, 38 episodes over 5 seasons. All right, so got 8 episodes in season 1, 9 episodes in season 2, 8 episodes in season 3, and then season 4 has a total of 9 episodes, 7 that apparently came out on May 27th, and 2 that came out on July 1st, both in 2022. And then, yeah, we've got this final season, season 8, or season 5 rather, which is 8 episodes, 4 that were released on November 26th recently, 3 more on Christmas, and then that last one on December 31st. So he's saying that it is entirely possible that I could do a full watch through of this show in time for the finale on New Year's Eve. That could be done. You know what? Challenge accepted. I already said last week that I was possibly going to be dabbling into Welcome to Derry. That's only 8 episodes, right? That's only going to be, I think, somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken. If I forget what I said last week. Because Phil and many others have been singing the praises of that show. But Stranger Things, yeah, 38 episodes over the course of a month, and December has 31 days. So, okay, you know what? Challenge accepted. I was able to blow through Breaking Bad in less time, right? I was, because Breaking Bad, that was a show that I got into it while we were in the middle of the 6-month break that separated the first half of the last season and the second half of the last season. In that 6-month break, I kept seeing clips of it. People kept talking about it. I was spoiler averse, did not know anything really about any of the spoilers inherent to it, and binged it in 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And those were longer seasons. That was more episodes than this. So I think it was 66 episodes total for that show. So yeah, I blew through about 60 episodes of television, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there in 3.5 weeks. I think I can do this. I think I can absolutely do this. All right, challenge accepted. Why not? Why not? We'll go ahead and get that going. That'll be the other thing that I do, because I was trying to think, okay, what else am I going to watch? Like this month, aside from 12 Days of Flight Review, which I'm coming up with a new list of Christmas movies for this year. One that popped up today that I could not. Someone said they were watching it for Christmas, and I'm like, I can't believe I forgot about that movie, that particular Christmas movie. But I wanted to know what else I was going to watch this particular month, in addition to 12 Days of Flight Review. And yep, there we go. Stranger Things. Okay. And I'll be okay with respect to spoilers. Stranger Things, here's the thing. When you post and follow certain things on social media, the algorithm points you to what, more of the rage baiting content from what it is that you interact with. And I don't interact with Stranger Things posts. I don't follow Millie Bobby Brown. I don't follow David Harbour or anybody else, right? So I don't post about Stranger Things. So because of that, it doesn't throw the spoilers or anything else at me. It doesn't throw the Stranger Things conversation at me. I see it in passing. So I am completely spoiler averse. I have no idea. All I know is that Millie Bobby Brown's character's name is 11, and that there's some heavily make-up character called Vecna. That's all I know. Oh, and there's and the Upside Down. That's it. That's it. I really don't know anything else with respect to the show. So, and I know actors, like I know other actors and whatnot that have been in the show, but that's it. But I don't really, I have no other knowledge of the show in that regard. So, all right, here we go. So, I'm watching Stranger Things here in the month of December. This should be very intriguing. And that was actually the end of Alex's email, because he said no Star Trek this week because I've been diving deep into Stranger Things. Live long and prosper, Alex. All right, here we go. Challenge accepted. I'm going to dive into Stranger Things for the month of December. We'll see how this goes. All right. Thank you as always for the feedback, Alex. Indeed, greatly appreciated. And finally, we'll close things out with an email from Jared Cardos titled Flight Chat, Thanksgiving Flicks, and More. He says, Hey Ray, hope you're doing well and had a great Thanksgiving. Probably should have added a happy Thanksgiving at the end of my last email, but c'est la vie. Anyway, here's some thoughts on your recent episodes. He says, in Flight Chat, it was talked about how a Justice League movie will eventually happen, and if there's some MCU expectations in thinking about it. And I definitely think there is some of that, he says. And really, when you think about it, the Justice League has always been formed in a more haphazard way. Of course, there's the DCEU that had to establish Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg in their Justice League movie. In the DCAU, they only really had Batman and Superman established before the Justice League animated series, with some one-off appearances of other characters like Flash, Aquaman, and a Green Lantern beforehand. The DCAMU, or the New 52 movie universe, starts with the Justice League forming, he says. I think I've seen that movie. Isn't that Justice League War? Isn't Justice League War that movie? I don't know. I could be wrong. He says in the recent Tomorrowverse films, it was only really established at the very end with the Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy. And maybe biggest of all, there was the Justice League Mortal film, which almost went into production were it not for the writer's strike and the success of The Dark Knight. And that would have been an entire Justice League crafted specifically for that film. And this was before cinematic universes were really a sought-after thing. So who knows if anything would have spun out of it. Another thing to consider, he says, is that with Gunn already having a Justice Gang set up and some different characters in it, as well as Gunn's own influences, I think it's more likely to be influenced by something like Justice League International in the 80s more than anything really classical. While I'm sure stalwarts like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman will be there, I think we're more likely to have characters like Mr. Terrific, Blue Beetle, probably Jaime, Booster Gold, or something completely off the wall like Peacemaker, but I guess we'll all find out together soon enough. Yep, because as Alex and I both said earlier, you know how we feel about speculation. But yeah, I just really hope that people don't get MCU level expectations, not only in terms of when it's going to happen, but also in terms of structure. Because no, I don't think that Gunn is going to follow the MCU paradigm of everybody except two of our characters get a solo movie. Because remember, Iron Man got 2 solo movies, Thor got a solo movie, Cap got a solo movie, Hulk got a solo movie. Hawkeye and Black Widow did not get solo anything until Phase 4, right? Phase 4 is when we finally got the Black Widow movie, which should have been Phase 3. It's the last episode of Phase 3. And the Hawkeye show was even after that in that regard. So, yeah, just something to consider with respect to that. And I agree, because of his own influences. And people have, I think William at Sci-Fi Center and a couple of others have mentioned the Justice League International lineup that Gunn seems to be leaning towards, if there's any speculation at all, in terms of what his Justice League will have, who will be in the roster, as opposed to a classic roster in that regard. So yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that, but we'll see. I'm not even counting on a Justice League movie at this point. I'm just counting on DC movies, and you know, how well do they do, and we'll find out this upcoming year, 2026, how all of the non-James Gunn written and directed projects do. Lanterns, Supergirl, and Clayface, respectively, right? We'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we've got Man of Tomorrow in 2027. So let's just see how this universe fills out before we start talking about what happens with a Justice League film, which is at least 3-4 years down the road, if that, right? He says, as for the Brainiac news, there was another big appearance of Brainiac in recent stuff that I would recommend, was one that I wouldn't have not expected, he says. But season 5 of Harley Quinn had a great take on Brainiac. Very funny and yet still threatening and surprisingly deep without going into spoilers. That is a show that I was watching religiously for DC TV Squadcast, and also even interviewed Jefferson Friedman, the composer of the score for Harley Quinn animated series. And I think I dropped off like season 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I haven't watched the last 3 seasons of it, apparently. And I'm looking on the wiki of this, and again, just file this again under too much shit to watch. 5 seasons, 57 episodes, right? 13 in season 1, 13 in season 2, and they've done 10 episodes this season since then, plus the special. There was a special on February 9th, 2023. Oh, Rachel's birthday. How about that? Anyway, so, like, I am 3 seasons behind on this show. I haven't seen any seasons 3, 4, or 5. I haven't seen Kite Man, hell yeah. I haven't seen the special. And apparently, as of March 20th of this year, a 6th season is in development, if you will, right? So they're going to do, this show is still going, right? Which, haven't heard anything about that with respect to, James Gunn and the DCU and all that. Like, it's clearly going to be an offshoot show. No one said anything about trying to connect it, have they? Like, that's, as far as I know, that show is still continuing, even if it isn't 5 seasons. My goodness, 5 seasons of an animated series. And it's not that I didn't like the show. I quite enjoyed the show, to be honest with you. And I personally think that Kaylee Cuoco is a really good Harley Quinn. I think she's really good. I think Lake Bell is a really good Poison Ivy. I think they did an awesome job with the characterizations of, long-standing DC characters in that show. Obviously, with what Alan Tudyk does with Clayface, and with King Shark. Who is it that does King Shark? It was a stand-up comedian. What is his name? Ron Funches. That's right. Ron Funches does King Shark in that show. So yeah, no, there's quite a bit that I need to get caught up on with that show. But you say they did Brainiac? They did Brainiac in season 5. All right, interesting. Not completely a surprise, because yeah, like, that show could go there with certain things. There were things that show did in the first 2 seasons. I was like, wow, okay, I actually dig the take that they have on Harley and the Joker and a lot of other characters going forward. No, this is pretty cool. But all right, fair enough. At some point, I don't know when, but I gotta figure out when. There's just too much shit to watch. I already last week I said I was going to try and get into Welcome to Derry. Now this week I'm saying I'm going to watch Stranger Things in time for the finale. All right, we'll see how all this goes. So much shit to watch. Anyway, he says, and on your Thanksgiving episode, Jared says, I have to say that I ended up watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles for the first time. Well, first and a half, he says. I did try last year, but had to stop halfway through. But I agree, it's overall a great movie. Martin and Candy give amazing performances, has great comedy, and it does a good job of being heartfelt without being schmaltzy. Again, I don't think schmaltzy is a bad thing, but it is what it is. It's all subjective. I read up a little bit about it and saw that there was a monologue that Candy gives at the end when Neil realizes Dell's deal that was cut for pacing. And while I agree that the movie is expertly paced, man, I wish that scene was still there. It would have taken a scene that was already good into something much, much more amazing and memorable, I think. I see both arguments for it, Jared, because I'm with you. I've read that dialogue. Like, I've read what that scene is, like what Dell would have said, and I can picture that just driving home like the whole message at the very end. But I also understand the brevity and how much of a gut punch it still is in terms of what happens to Dell at the end of that film, for sure. And then of course leading into the very satisfying ending, I would say, at the end of that film. But yeah, I'm with you. He says, I would have watched Dutch, But like you talked about, it's hard to find anywhere that's reasonably priced. Hopefully something is done with it someday to make it more widely accessible. Yeah, I had to go through creative means in order to watch it, which I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go through regular conventional means to do it. It's not available. It's literally not available. It's one of those cases where it's like, if I want to watch this movie, what else am I supposed to do in order to be able to watch this movie, right? It's like, I don't want to do certain things, but I have to in order to be able to watch it. So, yeah, I listen. I would love for there to some type of reissue. Come on, Shout Factory. Somebody else. I know Shout Factory just turned over all their operations to Grove, and but there's other boutique like retailers out there. Like somebody, come on, Kino Lorber. Come on, you just put out a 4K Uncle Buck earlier this year, right? Like somebody out there has got to be able to get a hold of this film and put it out there, like reissue it for consumption for a new audience. Come on, it's not going to take that much. Seriously, you'd get people in the boutique land buying that damn movie. You absolutely would. If you can put all the other Hughes classics in physical media and at least make them available for download. You can't put Dutch on Hulu. You can't put Dutch somewhere in the physical media realm. I call bullshit on that. Somebody just needs to get off their ass and make it happen so that we can all watch it like, the legitimate way, if you will. He says, Jared says, it's funny. I never really thought about there being Thanksgiving movies until recently. And while I agree those two, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Dutch, sound like the most explicitly Thanksgiving movies, I've also seen talk of two others that might be unorthodox, but I think work to some extent. First is Addams Family Values. While I don't know if it takes place during Thanksgiving, with the Addams family, it feels like every day is Halloween anyway. One of the most iconic scenes is Wednesday dismantling a Thanksgiving showcase, and that's very funny and subversive. You might have seen me repost it on Threads, but there was a funny post I saw there that said something along the lines of, "It isn't Thanksgiving until I see Wednesday Addams burn this mother effer to the ground." The other one is Kevin Smith's Zack and Miri Make a Porno. It actually takes place around the holiday, starting on Thanksgiving, and Black Friday plays a role in the plot. And outside of that, it does have a certain found family vibe to it with all the different characters. So I remember not really liking Zack and Miri Make a Porno like the one time that I saw it, because there was a point where early on, I was a huge Kevin Smith fan. Like the first 5 movies in the BLUESKY universe, I really dug, like all of them, like Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, even though I know Chasing Amy is not terribly PC today for a number of reasons, and I totally understand why. Dogma, which is the first one of those films that I saw, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. After that, I wasn't really I still to this day haven't seen Jersey Girl. I forget how and why I saw Zack and Miri Make a Porno, but like I just wasn't really, I just kind of fell out of favor necessarily with Kevin Smith movies. Not that I have anything against Kevin Smith at all, just really it was just those first 5 U.S. Universe movies that I really dug. And so Zack and Miri, I'd have to rewatch that in order to really see like how that fits as a Thanksgiving movie. I will say though, Addams Family Values at best is probably Thanksgiving adjacent. And I say Thanksgiving adjacent. I found this, and I gotta bring this up because I saw a couple of weeks ago on Threads one of the most brilliant arguments I've heard as far as Christmas movies and like what is defined as a Christmas movie and what isn't with respect to like definitions for particular films. Here we go. So this is from an account called Legion Publishing that I've randomly found this. This came up on Threads like 3 weeks ago. And he says, films that happen to be set at Christmas, but the fact that it is Christmas is not a plot device, are Christmas-adjacent movies. Films where it being Christmas means the plot doesn't work if it wasn't for Christmas are pure Christmas films. Examples: Lethal Weapon, set at Christmas, but the plot moves without it. Christmas-adjacent. Christmas Vacation, doesn't have the family there if it's not Christmas. Pure Christmas film. He also says Gremlins, Billy gets Gizmo for Christmas. Pure Christmas film. I never thought of that. Gizmo is a Christmas gift. So yeah, without the holiday, yeah, so that would make it, by his logic, a pure Christmas film. He says anything with Santa Claus as a main character is a pure Christmas film. And here we come to the crux of the argument. And of course, it has to do with this movie. Die Hard relies on the robbery taking place during a Christmas party that Takagi is hosting. Without the Christmas party, no hostages for Hans. Without it being Christmas, John McClane isn't in LA at Nakatomi Plaza trying to rekindle a relationship with his wife so that he can spend Christmas with his family. Without it being Christmas, there is no film. Therefore, Die Hard is pure Christmas. I don't make the rules, it's just logic and reason. Those are his words. So, using that logic, which I think it's brilliant logic, I really do. I think it's fantastic logic. But using that logic, I think if we just take out Christmas and replace it with any other holiday, right? Like in this case, Thanksgiving, I think we can then call Addams Family Values Thanksgiving adjacent. And I mean seriously, like really Thanksgiving adjacent, because that's a summer camp, right? The Thanksgiving like sketch is happening during a summer camp, so not even close to November, right? And the reason people post about that movie at Thanksgiving, it's not because it happens around the holiday, and it's not because it like directly involves the holiday. What it is that for those of us that have not, for people who haven't seen the movie, what happens is Wednesday and Pugsley go to the summer camp, and it's called Camp Chippewa, and it's just a haven of cultural appropriation. It's white people like badly appropriating Native American culture, like really, really badly, right? And while they're there, Wednesday is cast as Pocahontas in their upcoming play that depicts the first Thanksgiving, right? And this is put on by, if I remember correctly, it's Christine Baranski and Peter McNichol, which if you Google either of those names, you've seen either of them or both of them in something, right? Whether it's Big Bang Theory, Ghostbusters 2, there's a bunch of stuff that both of those actors have been in. But at any rate, when Wednesday refuses to participate, she, Pugsley, and Joel are all sent to the camp's Harmony Hut and are forced to watch hours of wholesome family entertainment movies and television shows. I'm reading this from the wiki, even though I know this is what happens. Afterwards, the three feign cheerfulness, and Wednesday agrees to take part during the performance. Wednesday breaks from the script and leaves the other outcasts to torch the set and capture Amanda, Gary, and Becky. Later, Wednesday and Joel share their first kiss. Joel, played by David Krumholtz, I should mention, very young David Krumholtz, because that's how old this movie is, early 90s. They share their first kiss before she and Pugsley leave, with Joel staying behind to lead their friends to ensure the camp's permanent destruction. So the reason people like this movie around Thanksgiving is because it destroys the traditional Thanksgiving myth, the motif, right? The whole thing about the Pilgrims, having the first Thanksgiving with Native Americans, right? And that just completely like the whitewashed like propagandic history of Thanksgiving that most people don't follow anymore. Like it's really not like that. I don't know if that's taught in schools anymore, probably somewhere down south or wherever, but like it is largely accepted, colloquially speaking, that Thanksgiving is not about the Pilgrims, it's not about the Native Americans, it's not about that at all. People use it as an opportunity to celebrate what they are thankful for as families and friends and whatnot. They've reappropriated it into that. But the reason people like Addams Family Values is because Wednesday literally lays waste to the original myth and basically says what, people probably wish would have happened originally, which is that the Native Americans lead a revolt and basically say, we're not going to accept your smallpox and your blight and your drug addictions and everything else you're going to poison our land with, yada, 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 and sets everything on fire. Like that's what it is. It's socio-political feelings in that regard, but it has nothing to do with Thanksgiving. It's not a Thanksgiving movie. It's at best Thanksgiving adjacent because, again, like it deals with the myth of Thanksgiving, but it all happens at a summer camp. And it's also like, is it the best part of the movie? Like, is it like one of the strongest parts of the movie? Absolutely. I mean, the movie's great. Like seriously, Addams Family Values, in many ways, I like that movie more than the first one. For no certain terms, because like Christopher Lloyd is like Fester throughout the whole movie. Like he's Fester from start to finish. So it really is the whole family together. And also, no disrespect to the original actress who played Mama in Granny in the first movie, but Carol Kane. I can't argue with Carol Kane as Mama Granny in this Addams Family Values. She just fit that cast so perfectly because it's Carol Kane. It's Carol freaking Kane. What can Carol Kane not do? Seriously, and her brand of crazy and her brand of eccentricity just works so perfectly for that cast and for that movie. So yeah, Addams Family Values might be one of the most underrated sequels, although I feel like a lot of people rate it very highly and probably think of it more highly than they do the first Addams Family film. I own both. I mean, they're excellent films. Both of them are, really, for a number of reasons. But either way, yeah, that's what I would say about Addams Family Values. It's at best Thanksgiving adjacent based on the logic. He says, finally, Jared says, you talked about doing a new batch of Flight Miss episodes, 12 Days of Flight Review, yes, with movies you haven't seen. I'm not sure if you've seen this one or not, but a recent film I would recommend is The Holdovers, starring Paul Giamatti, set in the 70s, about a boarding school teacher who has to watch over a group of kids who have nowhere else to go during the winter holiday. It has a great mix of comedy and drama and some twists that I didn't expect, but work very well and works very well as a Christmas movie. And I think that'll do it for me. Thanks for reading and looking forward to your future episodes. Thank you, as always, Jared, for the feedback. The Holdovers is definitely in contention. I have not seen it, but I've seen the trailer, and yes, The Holdovers is definitely in contention for a potential movie for 12 Days of Flight Review this particular year. Yeah, I'm putting together that list now because I want to get it set now so that we can do 12 days, the right way leading up to Christmas. Hopefully, again, I will stay healthy, as I did not do that last year and ended up having to roll the last 5 movies into one feedback, into one recap episode, if you will. Hopefully I will stay healthy through the Christmas holiday this particular year, and I will be able to do the 12 days appropriately leading up to Christmas in that regard. That is the hope. So, yes, but definitely The Holdovers. Thank you for that suggestion. Yes, that is one that I am curious about. Paul Giamatti is awesome. I can't wait to see him in Starfleet Academy as the lead villain, the lead antagonist, if you will, of that show. But yeah, Paul Giamatti's phenomenal. Absolutely outstanding actor. So yeah, definitely that is a very real possibility that the Holdovers could be a part of 12 Days of Flight Review. But thank you as always for the suggestion. Thank you as always for the feedback, Jared. It is indeed greatly appreciated. And that will do it for this week's episode of Flight Chat, the final episode for the month of November. We've got 1 month left in 2025, the month of December, to get through feedback, talking about movies, TV, and other assorted media. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Thank you so much for supporting the Flightcast in all forms, if you will. If you have any opinions about anything that we talked about in this particular show, and we talked about quite a bit. We talked about Thanksgiving movies. We talked about Anemoia, right? We talked about Stranger Things, Jurassic World. We talked about speculating, with future comic book movies, future movies in general and whatnot, and how, some of us don't necessarily care for that. We talked about a number of things in this particular episode. If there's anything that you listen to in this episode that you want to share your thoughts and feelings on with respect to movies, TV, and other assorted media, or anything else with respect to movies, TV, and other assorted media to join the feedback circle with, you know where to find me on Threads and Instagram at The Flightcast, on BLUESKY at FlightCast. You can comment on the posting for this episode at the Flightcast YouTube channel, where all of these episodes go, at youtube.com/theflightcast. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care. Stay safe out there. Have a great week. Have a great start to the month of December, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.